Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. We've both shared our experience with losing our daughter back in 2020. It was the hardest thing that we've ever gone through, and we would just like to share some of the things that we did that helped us to learn how to manage our feelings and cope with that loss.
When that happened, it was really difficult for us to navigate those feelings, understand what was going on. So we just wanted to share some things that have helped us find healing, and we're hoping that it'll give you ideas on how you can heal or how you can help a loved one who is grieving. First, we wanted to start off by sharing some thoughts that we had during all of this, just to give you guys an idea of what we were feeling and the things that we were thinking. I had a lot of guilt. I just kept blaming myself. A lot of things that I had were like what ifs. I kept thinking, oh, what if I did this differently? Or what if I didn't do that? You know, all these different things. I kept trying to replay the experience over and over in my head, thinking if there was anything that I could have done to change it. And I also had very negative thoughts of, oh, what if my husband married someone else? Then he wouldn't have to go through that grief and pain. And so I just kept blaming myself. I felt like everything was just my fault. I also had feelings of like, oh, what if I wasn't ready to be a mother? Like God or the universe didn't think I was ready. So since I got pregnant when I wasn't ready, my baby was taken away. I also felt pretty hopeless because I thought that I would never get a chance to be a mother. Even though, I don't know, it seemed kind of dramatic at the point, but that was what I was feeling like. That was my world. I felt like I would never be able to have my own child here. I would never be able to experience motherhood here on earth. So those negative thoughts are harmful and they are not true. It is not your fault. Guilt is just a way for us to cope when we don't have any control over the situation. And a lot of times we have no control over losing a baby, losing a child, having a miscarriage. Any of those things, we don't have any control over that. And so for us to try to kind of gain some kind of control, we blame ourselves, even though we're not the ones to blame. But we do that to try to cope because that's our way to try to get any kind of control over the situation. And so it's natural that we do that, even though it's just so sad and it's so hard that that's the first thing that we do is just blame ourselves, find fault within ourselves. In reality, it's just something that's out of our control. We have no idea why these things happen, but they just do happen. If you're having feelings like this, it's okay. It's normal. It's important to recognize it, and it's also important to recognize that they're not true. And it's also really important to remember that you are still a mother or a father. That baby, that child that you lost, they are still yours.
I also had similar thoughts. I would think to myself that I wasn't ready to be a father, that maybe it was because God didn't think I was ready that we lost our baby. And I think that sometimes I like to dwell on that thought instead of facing the fact that I had lost my daughter and that we had lost a baby. I sometimes just dwell on the fact that, hey, maybe I wasn't ready. And I think that instead of actually facing it and coming to terms with what had happened and allowing myself to feel the pain and loss, sometimes I like to just hide behind that thought that I wasn't ready and this was a good thing. And I don't think that was healthy, and I don't think that it helped me in my recovery process either.
Something else that I noticed was at that time when I was grieving, I felt like everywhere I looked there was something, like there was a pregnancy announcement or someone had a baby. Like it seemed like the whole world was having babies except for me, which is just interesting just because everything like on my social media feed, it would just pop up motherhood and babies because those were the things that I was searching before because I was pregnant. And I had a lot of friends that announced that they were pregnant. And so I felt like everyone else was just having babies except for me. And I did feel just a little bit jealous. Obviously, I was happy for any of our friends that had babies, but then I was just sad that we couldn't keep our baby. I would also look online and I would hear other people's stories, and I would find and hear stories of people where they had a very premature baby at 22 weeks, but then the baby miraculously survived And after spending months in the NICU, they were healthy and they were able to live a normal life. And so after hearing stories like that, I kept wondering, well, why didn't that happen to us? Why couldn't we have that miracle? And so it was just kind of hard because I would just kind of compare our experience with other people's and wonder why we couldn't have the same miracles or blessings that other people had.
Shortly after we lost our baby, we went back home and it was just the two of us, and we were lucky to have a lot of people who supported us through all of this. I have a brother who was also married who had some small children, and we also had some close friends that were married with small children as well. And one thing that I noticed is that when they would come over to visit us and comfort us, it was really difficult to see them interacting with their babies and newborns, because it just reminded me that we didn't have our baby with us, and it just brought so much pain and anguish that I hadn't really ever felt before. So I think for the first couple weeks it was really difficult to get together with people who had babies, and I think that that's okay as you give yourself some time to grieve, because seeing other people with small babies was triggering to us.
And it'll also change, because I noticed for me, the same thing. Immediately afterwards, it was just really hard for me to see babies and people with babies. It was just something that brought me a lot of pain and hurt. But then I noticed after a couple weeks, I just wanted to be by babies and people with babies. And I actually found that healing. Grieving is just really interesting because you can be feeling one way for a certain amount of time and then you'll feel completely different. And so it was just interesting how for me, both things were healing but at different times. So at first I just wanted to stay away from babies just for a little bit, just because it was painful to see them. But then afterwards, I just really wanted to see babies. One of the first things that we did to help us start to heal and cope and navigate the emotions that we were feeling was write in our journals. We wrote about the experience, we wrote down the details, and this was actually something that we did together. We both sat down, and as we were writing in our journals, we would talk about the experience, talk about the details and different things that we remembered. We were very emotional. It was kind of difficult to do, but it was a tender experience because we were both grieving. We were both feeling so many different emotions, but being able to just sit down and kind of relive that moment, although it was a really hard experience for us, it was kind of a blessing to be able to then reflect and see any tender mercies or little miracles that happened that day, even though, of course, at the time we didn't think there were any miracles going on because we were going through the loss of our daughter. But afterwards, just writing in our journals and reflecting on that, it just helped us remember the details and also just remember specifics about our daughter. Just anything that we could do to remember her, just because the time that we had with her was very short, but we still wanted to remember our Evelyn.
We buried her shortly after she died, but we didn't have a chance to get her a tombstone. We have tried to search for ways that we can honor the life that she had, and one of these ways is on her second birthday, we went and we got her a tombstone. So we went to the place that makes the tombstones and we got to customize, and they're really nice. We had like 3 different designs that we liked some of the things on them. We liked the little infant in the hands to kind of show the size that she was when we lost her, and we also liked having roses on there because her middle name was Rose, so we just thought it was very fitting and it also looked pretty. And we also wanted it to have our names on there because she's still our daughter, even though we lost her.
I feel like getting the tombstone also was something that gave me closure. When we first lost her, I felt like I didn't have the mental capacity to think about getting a tombstone, and so that's why we waited. But doing it on her second birthday was a really special experience because it felt like we were doing something to celebrate her, to honor her. After that, I just felt a lot of peace.
One other thing that we found was a good way to remember her is when Christmas came around, we decided to make an ornament and put a couple of the pictures that we liked most on it of her. So we have an ornament that says "In loving memory of Evelyn Rose Jacob," and then the day that she was born, February 17th, and then her height and weight on there as well. So I think it's a great way to remember her, and we just put that up every Christmas time.
Jared was actually the one that came up with the idea for the ornament, and I loved it. It was really a special gift. And we've actually decided to have that be a tradition of having an ornament for each of our children when they are born. I just love that every Christmas when we get to put the tree up and when we see that ornament, that we'll get to show our children and remind them about Evelyn, just because we want our children to know about their sister, because she is still part of our family. Even though she's not here with us, we still want to remember her.
When we lost Evelyn, a lot of people would reach out and offer things to help us, and I think we got 2 or 3 copies of this book right here, Gone Too Soon. After we lost the baby, a lot of people were recommending that we read it. People that had gone through similar situations would reach out and say that this helped them, and from experience they said that this was a helpful book for those who are dealing with losing a child. We both were able to read it. Laura picked it up first and I think probably finished it before I started it. But I think that it really helped to understand the grieving process, because it really is a process, not just a singular event, and also to help to find peace and hope, and also understand that it's normal to have a lot of the feelings that are associated with losing a child.
This book was really helpful to me because I felt like when I first lost Evelyn, I felt like I was going crazy. The different thoughts and things that I had and everything that I was feeling. But reading this book helped me realize that it was normal, that I wasn't the only person in the world who has ever gone through this, that was feeling that way. And it also helped justify my feelings, because I realized there was a reason why I was feeling all those different things. And it was just a lot of really good information to find healing. And I love this book so much that I actually give it to people when I find out that they have a miscarriage or they experience loss. I always buy this book and give it to them just because I feel like it's really helped us, and I'm hoping that it can help other people too.
I talked about this a little bit in my video when I shared my experience with losing Evelyn, but I feel like it's very difficult as a man to go through these processes because there are a lot of stereotypes, and I'd just like to share a poem that was in the Gone Too Soon book that really stood out to me.
When I actually read this poem, it made me cry, just because I know it is very true. Men also grieve, they also experience the loss. And so reading this, I just thought it was just so beautifully put of what it's like for men to grieve. And I don't know, just thinking about the pain that Jared must have been feeling at the time, it made me cry, but it is very beautifully put.
Okay, here it goes. It must be very difficult to be a man in grief, since men don't cry and men are strong. No tears can bring relief. It must be very difficult to stand up to the test and field calls and visitors, so she can get some rest. They always ask if she's all right and what she's going through, but seldom take his hand and ask, "My friend, but how are you?" He hears her crying in the night and thinks his heart will break. He dries her tears and comforts her, but stays strong for her sake. It must very difficult to start each day anew and try to be so very brave. He lost his baby too. I think that these words are just so beautiful. This is a poem written by Eileen Knight Hagemeister. I think it's very beautiful because it puts in words what is something that's very difficult to explain, that you feel like you have to be strong and you have to put on a front for people because you're the man, and I felt like I had to be strong to help and support Laura, but there really is a grieving process that needs to happen for men as well as women.
It's true that women are the ones that are recovering physically from either the miscarriage or childbirth, but it's important to remember that both the woman and the man need to heal emotionally from the loss. And so I think that sometimes it can be overlooked, that we just focus on the woman, on the mother. But I think it's also really important to remember that we can't forget about the men, that they have feelings too. Even though they don't show it as much, they do have emotions. And I just think it's important to acknowledge that and to reach out to them as well, because they also need healing.
We are religious, so for us it was very helpful to tune into our spirituality a little bit when we turn to praying to God and just kind of talking to Him, walking through our feelings, and I think that brought us a lot of peace. We believe that we'll be able to see our daughter again. And that brings us a lot of peace, because we believe that because Jesus was resurrected, we will all be resurrected as well. And at that time, we'll be able to see our daughter again, that she will be our daughter, and that we'll be able to raise her at that time. And that brings us a lot of peace and comfort.
Even though I have those beliefs and I know those things to be true, there would still be times that I would just feel really upset and confused about the whole situation. And I would also feel guilty and kind of ashamed of myself, because I felt like I was unfaithful, or like that I didn't have enough faith, or that I was really weak if I was upset about losing my daughter. You can still have faith and be upset, because I knew those things were true, but I just felt ashamed and I felt like I didn't have enough faith because I was sad. Having faith doesn't mean that you're always going to be happy, that you'll never be upset about things. It's okay for you to still feel those feelings. The thing that I've realized is that religion, it really helped us to find the strength and the hope that we needed to get through this hard experience.
When certain days of the year come around, it's normal for us to feel a little bit of extra grief, like on Evelyn's birthday, or when her due date comes around, or when we're celebrating Christmas and we just remember that we don't have her with us, just an ornament on the tree. I think it's normal to grieve more on those days and to just take time to remember them. And I think that I don't expect that to ever go away, and I think that it's appropriate to take that time to cherish the memories that you have with them.
Some other days that I noticed that were especially hard for us at first was Mother's Day and Father's Day, just because we didn't have our baby, and so it was hard for me to feel like I was still a mother. Or I'm sure you felt the same way of,
Yeah, I did.
being a father. And so those days it was just hard, because it was just kind of a reminder of the things that we don't have. Just because it is a happy holiday and it's where we can honor our mothers and honor motherhood or fatherhood. But when you don't have your baby physically with you, it is just kind of a reminder of the pain that you are feeling. And so if you know someone who is grieving, if you have a loved one that has lost a baby or a child, just reach out to them on those days and just help them feel loved.
I think it was very helpful when people would reach out. It's great to know that there are people that are in your corner, that are supporting you and care enough to reach out and tell you that they're thinking of you when you're going through a hard time. And having someone to fall back on and to talk to if you need it is something that we really appreciated. We really appreciate when our family members go the extra mile to remember our daughter. On both sides of our families, we just have boys for grandchildren, so a lot of times it'll come up, oh, who's gonna bring the first granddaughter into the world? And we really appreciate it when our parents will butt in and say that, oh, we already have a granddaughter, she's just not here with us anymore. We really appreciate when people take the time to remember her and all that they say. And when they're talking about our children, a lot of times they'll say, oh, they have 3, but they lost their first. It just means a lot to us when people remember that that happened to us and bring it up.
Because it is really beautiful knowing that our daughter is real, that she is in heaven. And so whenever someone mentions that, it really means a lot to us. Some things that people did that helped us were things like acknowledging that we were hurting and not giving us a certain timeline of when we were supposed to be done grieving or hurting. People around us were just really understanding and caring, and they knew that we were hurting and they were trying to help in any way that they could. Even just things like sitting down with us and listening to us talk about it was so helpful. And again, this was also something that kind of varied. Sometimes it was just really hard to talk about it and I kind of just kept things in. And then other times I wanted to talk about it and I found it really healing to do it. And so just be patient with people because, again, they might feel differently about certain things. If you're confused about something, if that'll help them or not, you can just ask them. Other things that people did that didn't go unnoticed, that did help us, were things just like bringing us flowers, bringing us food, bringing us treats. A friend just stopped by and brought me a bag of goodies and a soft blanket. I think that it was something that just really helped, was just people reaching out and just doing something nice. Because if people would have asked me at that time, like, oh, is there anything I can do for you? I probably would have been like, well, I don't know. I don't know what will help, or I probably just wouldn't have responded. And so just the fact that some people just decided, you know what, I'm gonna do this, and just came over, we actually really appreciated it, and it helped. I don't think it's ever a bad idea to do something nice, because it just shows people that you love them, that you care about them, that you're there for them. And so any of those things just really meant a lot to us. And we also got some really memorable gifts that we still have to this day. A couple that had a miscarriage before they came, and they brought us a beautiful picture of Christ holding a baby, and that is something that we keep in our home. It's one of my favorite pictures, honestly. Receiving that as a gift was just so meaningful, and I love it so much. Another meaningful gift that I really appreciate is for a Mother's Day, my sister-in-law got me a ring with her birthstone on it, and she said she wanted to give me something that I could remember her by. And that was really special, and I thought that was so kind of her. I really do appreciate having some form of jewelry that helps me remember her, that's kind of in honor of her.
I think that it's really important for those who are looking to support people who are going through a hard time to just not hesitate and go and do things, because a lot of times when you're in that situation, you don't know what you need, but anything that you can do that is kind will help out, and it goes a long way. I'm reminded of a poem that goes like this: I have wept in the night for the shortness of sight that to somebody's need made me blind, but I never have yet felt a tinge of regret for being a little too kind.
One of the most helpful things that has helped us find healing was connecting with other people who have gone through a similar experience. We've become friends with two couples who have had stillborn sons. One of them had a stillborn son almost a year after we lost Evelyn, and then several months later, the other couple had a stillborn son. Connecting with people who have gone through a similar experience has really helped us realize that we're not alone. And it's been really nice that we've been able to talk to them and relate to them, and even be able to empathize with them. And we actually also found that trying to help them also really helped us, just because we understood the pain and all the different emotions that come with losing a child. And these friendships mean so much to us. I'm actually really close to both of these amazing women. They are just some of the strongest people I know. They are just beautiful people. Being able to connect with them has really helped me in realizing that I'm not alone, that other people also experience these things. But then I feel like it was also really good to be close to someone, just to realize how human this is, to be able to open up to them and share my feelings of what I was going through when I was pregnant with Kenai, with our youngest. There was a point in the pregnancy where I was just very anxious, because I was at the point in the pregnancy that I was when I found out that I was in labor with Evelyn, and it was right around the time of when it was her birthday, and just all the things lined up, and I was just very, very anxious and stressed out and worried. And I just went out to lunch with them, and we talked, and it was so therapeutic for me. I can't describe it, but just being able to be there with them, they were so supportive, and that friendship is just so special, where we support each other, we are willing to cry with each other and just listen, and that is something that I treasure so much. So that is something that I really recommend. Just try to reach out and find people that have also experienced a loss. Our community also does things like a remembrance walk, or they go to the cemetery and they have a remembrance night, or just things like that. And so I would recommend, if you don't know anyone that has experienced a loss, just go to different community things that are available and try to meet people, because that has honestly been one of the biggest things that has helped us, is finding people that, even though it's not the same experience, but just being able to connect with them and they have similar feelings that we have.
It was very surprising to me to see how many people around us had experienced a similar loss. We had a few people who reached out. It was surprisingly really meaningful when someone could honestly look you in the eyes and say, I know what you're going through, and I made it through it, and to give you some tips of what helped them. So we hope to help to give you hope. We still grieve, but we were able to get through it, and so can you.
I believe our angel babies and our loved ones are closer than we think. To those of you who are going through a loss or who have experienced a loss, I'm so sorry. It honestly breaks my heart knowing that so many people have to go through this heartache. It's something that you never forget. But if you are going through this grieving process, please reach out to people and just know that you are still a parent and you matter. And just know that things will get better.